Today I just wanted to do a pretty quick tutorial, just something simple and fast. So, I'm not sure if many of you would already know how to do this, or if you're a beginner and just starting out in Dreams, this is going to help out a little bit. I want to show off how to make a collectible in its own personal video. So, first of all, you're going to want to have a thing to collect. So let's go ahead and look in the Dreamverse for something to collect, like a coin, for example. And this works. And we get a coin. This one's already spinning. Not sure where you put the logic for this. Oh, it's right there. Yeah. So he already has some kind of logic on it. So we're going to go ahead and delete that because we want to make our own logic. So there's a couple ways to make a collectible. We're going to go over both of them in this video. So first off, what you're going to want to do is you're going to go ahead and get a microchip. And we're going to hold down L1 and stamp it on our coin here. And the microchip is in the Gadgets, Logic, and Processing menu. Then we're going to go and open up this microchip with L1 and X. And there's two ways of actually picking this up. You could either detect the player or have the player detect the coin. We're going to do both of them. First, we're going to go ahead and do the detect the player one. First, we want to make sure that the player isn't going to actually collide with our coin. We want our player to be able to walk through the coin. So we're going to open up the properties of our coin, and we're going to go to the physics properties section, and we're going to make sure collidable is turned off. Again, physics properties section, which is the Newton's cradle, and you want to turn off collidable. That way, when the player is platforming or something, they'll just walk right through the coin like it didn't even exist. Next, we want to go into our gadgets menu. Since there's an input, we're going to get a trigger zone. And this is how we tell if a player is nearby. And we're going to go ahead and click on this with X. And that will bring up this sphere. And we want to extend it to what you want the detection radius to be, how close the player can be before this is picked up. I think this is a good enough range. Next, we want to add a animation for being picked up. So we're going to go to animate, and we're going to go ahead and get a timeline. And we're going to open the timeline, and there's a couple ways we can do this. We can just have it die. We can spawn like particle effects, or we could make it just shrink. So I'm going to do the particle effects and shrink. First thing that you want to do is we're going to go ahead and move our microchip off of our coin. I'm going to delete that wire. And we're going to select our coin and our microchip, and we're going to group them together. And what this does, it allows us to move around our coin and with an animation, but keep the position where you place it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to scope into your group that you just made, open up the properties of the microchip, group out with L1 and circle, and then you're going to take the apply to object wire and then hook it up to your group, like so. So whatever logic we have on here will apply to this entire group. And now we want to actually animate the shrinking. So we're going to go ahead and scope into the coin. And we're going to go to the animate section of our gadgets menu. Get a timeline if you haven't already and stamp that down. Open your timeline, and then we're going to get a keyframe. Now this keyframe, we're just going to go ahead and shrink our coin. I'm going to shrink it all the way down to like 1% or 0%, however small you would think it would look for your coin. And we're going to go ahead and try to move it into the original position. So the middle is like on the middle of this dot here. And now this timeline, after we extend this keyframe out properly, it should shrink it. So what we want to do is make this keyframe as long as you want the animation to take, like 2 seconds, for example. And we're going to have this little slider here. It's a fade in. We're going to move that all the way to the right, so it'll slowly shrink rather than shrinking instantly. Then we're going to go ahead and open up the properties of keyframe, and we're going to keep changes, so this way it'll stay shrunk. And if we press play right now, it should just shrink, like so. Next, we're going to go ahead and make some particle effects. These are pretty easy to do. We're going to go to modes, and we're going to do paint mode. And all you want to do is paint a few lines in the color that you want. Since we're going to be doing a coin and it's gold, we're going to go ahead and get a yellow color. And I'm going to do, let's say, the hatching fleck type. And all you want to do is just make a line. And once you have this line, we can copy it a few times. So it's coming out from the center. Like so. And that's all you have to really do in the actual paint mode. Then you exit paint mode, and we're going to go ahead and shrink it down a bit to scale to the size of the coin. Alright, and you may say, okay, well this doesn't look very good. This isn't at all what I had envisioned. Well, that's because we haven't done any effects on it yet. So we're going to go ahead and open up the properties of the painting. We're going to go to the duplicates tab, which is the cows. And we're going to go ahead and do rotational duplicates, all directions. And as you can see, we get a much different effect. In fact, I think this is not what I exactly want. Let's try inside sphere. No. On plane, no. So if you're not getting the effect you want, you can actually change this. Let's just try it with one line, for example. And then all directions. Rotational duplicate. There we go. That looks much better. And now we can increase the amount of copies, and we'll increase the scale jitter. That looks pretty. And now we're going to go ahead and go to the animation tab, and this is where we actually make it look proper. So we're going to go ahead and turn up the playback speed, like pretty high, like 1000% or so. And I'm going to turn on pulse. And now when we press play, it's going to go ahead and pulse out like that. So we're also going to make it glow. So we're going to go to coat properties, the very first tab, and we'll make it glow a bit, like 36%. And let's see here. Go back to the animation frame page. We can turn off loop. Now it's like a burst, like so. And trail length, if we make this longer, the tails should be longer. Alright, I think that's pretty good for an effect. You can also adjust the effects page to get even different visuals. And we're going to go ahead and pick this up. And we're going to go ahead and move it inside of our group with our coin. And by default, we want this turned off. But up here in our timeline, we're going to go to the Animate tab, and we're going to get another keyframe. And we're going to go ahead and turn on the power of our painting. And we're going to go ahead and open the keyframe properties and make it keep changes. So now, when that timeline plays, it will play that effect. And by default, if we turn this off, it shouldn't do anything. Yep, there it is. And now, let's get a sound effect, a coin kind of sound effect. So we're going to go to the Modes tab, and then Sound Mode. And we're going to search for a sound effect. It's going to take you to wherever you last were, or it's going to take you to this. And you want to go to the MM sound effects. We're going to try to find something for coin. So I think gaming works. Positive power-ups, probably. I like this one. So now we have a nice little animation for our coin. And what you want to do next is we're going to go ahead and make it so the coin is completely gone from your scene after this animation plays. So we're going to want to get a destroyer from our movers and output section. And we're going to put this on the timeline at the very end. Like so. And we're not going to place it directly after the keyframe. We're going to get a little space right there for later, because we're going to go ahead, well actually, you can place it at the very end. We'll place that logic outside of the animation. So now when a player walks by through this, it's going to disappear, but it's kind of just static at the moment. So why don't we add some movement effects. So we're going to go ahead and go to the gadgets menu again. We're going to get a mover, and we're going to go ahead and get a rotator. Now on both of these, you want to select them one at a time and move this arrow here into the direction that you want it to move. So we want it to move up and down. So we're going to move the arrow up, and we want it to rotate, not like this, but around like this. So we're going to go ahead and match that orientation there. And next we want to make it so it moves up and down, not just in one direction. So we're going to go ahead and open up our mover. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Say 1 meter per second. That sounds good. And we need to control that speed. So we're going to go ahead and go to our sensors and input section. And we're going to get a signal generator. And this just basically is a sine wave going up and down, like this. So we're going to go ahead and open up the properties, and we're going to set the minimum value range to -1, so it can go down instead of just up. And then we're going to go ahead and hook that up to our forward speed, and now it should rotate and bob up and down. Alright. Now, what if you want your coin to actually do something, like, for example, give you score, or to be used as currency? Well, that's pretty easy to do. All we gotta do is, we're gonna go ahead and get out a microchip. And if you have multiple scenes in your dream, then you want to use persistent variables to keep track of currency. If you just have like a little fun mini game, then you probably want to use score. Now, depending on your workflow, you're gonna either come up with a way to use the same variables in every scene, because if you don't have the variables in each scene, you're gonna lose that data that is stored. So if you haven't seen it already, I'd suggest watching my Good Game Design Motherboards tutorial, where I explain all the intricacies of variables and how to use motherboards efficiently, which is just basically a microchip with all your logic that you're going to do globally across your scene, which would be like currency and your inventory, etc. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and place down a microchip if you haven't already, open it up, and then we're going to go to our gadgets menu, logic and processing, and we're going to get a variable. And then we're going to go ahead and go into our gameplay gear section as well. And we're going to get a score. And we're going to want to name both of these. So if we select them, it will rename both of them at the same time. And we want to name them coins. Or you can name it cash, currency, anything of the like. So now we have both of these, and both of them are pretty much the same thing, except for variables. You can have them persist in a dream, and since they can persist in a dream, they can act as a currency throughout your entire dream in multiple scenes. Okay? And then coins is pretty much just a simplified version. As you can see, you don't have force reset or persistent dream, and you don't have a minimum value or maximum value, so that's alright. So now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to head over to our microchip here on our coin, and we want to get a score modifier in our gameplay gear, and we also want to get a variable modifier from the logic and processing section. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to open up our timeline, and we're going to actually place these on our timeline at the very beginning. We can go ahead and scale them down so it's only like a blip. And we want to increase our score by 1, and we want to increase our variable by 1 every single time we pick up a coin. So the way you can do that is we're going to go ahead and do the score modifier first. And the score name is coins, that's already set for us, and we want to have the operation type be add. Not set or get, add. This way we're adding to our current score rather than setting our score. Then update type when powered on, so it only does it once. And then we're going to set the operation value to 1, so we increase our coin score by 1. And we're going to basically do the same thing for the variable modifier, but we want to set the variable name to coins. You can use the D-pad up and down to cycle through all variables in your scene in this variable name thing right here. And again, we're going to add 1. Alright. And one last thing, I said we're going to do a different type. If you have many coins in your scene, I'd recommend not using a trigger zone, because trigger zones are actually a lot more expensive than tags, which are detected by trigger zones. So we're going to go ahead and open up our sensors and input section, and we're going to go ahead and grab a tag. However, first we want to open up the timeline properties here, and we want to make sure this is set to once, the playback mode, or else it's going to play halfway through once your player moves through it, and it's not going to actually die or finish the animation. So once you have this tag, we're going to name it to coin. And we're going to output the tag output to our timeline as well. I'm going to go ahead and delete this trigger zone. And now we want the player. So let's go ahead and get a player, which we're going to find in gameplay gear. And then either puppet works. We're going to get the basic one for now, because there's less stuff on it, it's less crowded. We're going to scope in with L and X, open up the puppet logic. And now we want to just put a sensor on here, trigger zone, and it's going to detect a tag and things to detect in the properties. Name to detect is going to be coin. So now when we detect that coin, we're going to pick it up. But we want to make sure this little ball here is actually centered on our player correctly, so we don't pick up things out of our reach and we pick up things that are for sure near us. And I'm going to go ahead and shrink it a little bit. It seems a bit too big for my taste. There we go. And now if we play, we can pick up this coin here. There we go. You see that the sound played again. I think it's because we went over the thing again. There's a quick way we could fix this, and this works for either sensors and for tags. In this little keyframe right here that turns on this effect, we can turn off the coin tag, and this does play once, yes. And you can do the same thing with the sensor trigger zone as well. There we go. I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And I also got a Patreon as well if you want to join in on my Patreon Discord server. So, yeah, goodbye. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.